So we're back in lockdown again at Christmas.
This is our lockdown, right?
So I decided to watch Wonder Woman 1984. It's not really a Christmas movie, but the film does end with a heartwarming Christmassy scene. All the things you'd want are there: snow, children playing, Christmas lights, that guy you raped, balloons. It's just a nice feel-good. Wait, what? Yeah, Wonder Woman 1984. I didn't like it. Why? I don't know. Misogyny, probably. Or patriarchy. Or white privilege. Or maybe it just wasn't very good. Let's have a talk about it and try and figure it out. I thought the original Wonder Woman was okay. I mean, it was probably the best of the DC movies up to that point, but that was a really low bar. Really, really low.
Save Martha!
If it was on TV on a wet Tuesday night, I might watch it. If Wonder Woman 1984 was on TV on a wet Tuesday night, I'd stab myself in the eyes with a fork. Or watch The Last Jedi. Shit. No, that's going a bit too far. Wonder Woman 84 isn't Last Jedi bad, just instantly forgettable. So what happened in it? Well, I just said I'd instantly forgot. Aren't you listening? Nah, it's okay, I've made notes. After an interminably long intro sequence set in the past when Wonder Woman was a child, Wonder Woman 84 finally starts with what I assume is a nod to the old Richard Donner Superman movies. There's people walking about being unwittingly saved by Wonder Woman. Then she happens across a robbery in a mall, and it's not just any mall, it's a 1980s mall. Why is the 1980s significant?
I don't know.
She saves this kid that one of the robbers took hostage, and then she rounds up the bad guys. A news guy reports that this is one of several reports of this mystery woman appearing to stop bad guys. She had taken out the CCTV cameras in the mall, but only after she'd shown up. So basically everyone would know about her, but then she gets forgotten about up to the events of Batman vs Superman. I suppose as long as she's dealing with small, local issues, then we can hand-wave it away that no one else has heard of her.
I find that rather difficult to believe.
Turns out one of the things the robbers were stealing was black market antiquities. They end up at Diana's work, the Smithsonian, the same place she's still working at the start of the Justice League, 30 odd years later. Her fellow employees must all want to know how she stays so young. My money's on monkey glands. So Diana has been pining for Steve Trevor. Pining for a pining, you might say. She touches the magic wishing rock and she gets her wish, in a way. Steve turns up in another guy's body, apparently possessing him. We get some weren't 80s clothes funny stuff and fish out of water stuff with Steve, and then they bang. While all this has been going on, Maxwell Lord, a TV scam artist, has gotten his hands on the wishing rock. He's a big failure, but he wants to prove to his son that he can be a success. So he wishes to be the wishing rock. So now he can grant wishes to people and, because the rock also takes things away from them, he can choose what he gets in return. So by getting people to wish for stuff, he becomes more powerful and richer, although it appears to be making him ill too for some reason. Steve and Diana stop humping long enough to figure out what's going on and try to stop him as the world spirals towards World War III. But Diana is really slowly losing her Wonder Woman powers, as her punishment for making the wish, I assume. So eventually she has to let Steve go by renouncing her wish. Once she's back to full strength, she confronts Lord, who is broadcasting his wishing powers to the whole world, and convinces him and everyone else to renounce their wishes, and everything goes back to normal. Oh, and Kirsten Wiig was in it as a Catwoman for some reason. The end. And that story took them 2.5 hours to tell. 2.5 bloody hours. So it's mostly just a wafer-thin, light and fluffy plot, but I do have a few major things to say about it. Firstly, magic is now a thing in the DC movie universe. What's the problem with that? It's been in the Marvel universe for ages now. Well, this might just be a personal thing. I realise that superpowers are a kind of magic. Superheroes have pretty distinct powers, and they usually find out what they can and can't do with them. But I always think that having wizards and witches and magic MacGuffins brings up too many questions. I mean, Thor's hammer's magic, right? But it's quite clearly defined that it returns to Thor when he calls it, and you can't lift it unless you're worthy. You know, it's got limitations. But what are Doctor Strange's limitations? Could he just pop someone out of existence? Doesn't seem like it, but he essentially traps Loki, who's a top tier bad guy, in a portal that he can't get out of until the Doc wants him to. That might have been a good thing to do to Thanos or some of his cronies. Back to Wonder Woman.
Stay on target.
Is there now magical objects in the DC universe where anyone could just say, kill the Justice League? Maxwell Lord wishes to be the Wishing Rock. Could he have just wished to be God? There's already a bit of Bruce Almighty vibe going on here with everyone getting their wishes at once. Maybe he just didn't think of that, but my point is that possible now? The rules and limitations of it are never explained. Similarly, Wonder Woman is now able to focus and make things invisible, because her dad made her island invisible apparently. Except it wasn't really invisible, was it? Once someone passed through a barrier, they could plainly see it. It wasn't so much invisible as it had a sort of cloak around it. Anyway, that's not my point. My point is, she uses it so that we can have Wonder Woman's invisible jet. But can she now make anything invisible? What about herself or other people? You see how introducing random magic can cause confusion? My other issue is obviously with the time frame of the movie. This was a major global event in the 1980s, with Wonder Woman talking to the whole world about how they should renounce their wishes because the world's already great or something. Nukes were flying at that point, people were dying, there was chaos across the globe. Sorry, flat earthers. And this all happened in 1984, so wouldn't the whole world know about her? Her shushing a few kids throughout the movie doesn't really cover that up. If everything snapped back to before the Rock was discovered, then it wasn't well explained, and it certainly didn't seem that way. Similarly, if there was a mind wipe thing going on, I never saw it. 1984 would be looked back on with about as much awe as 2020 will be because of the coup. Remember that time when the whole world was nearly destroyed and everyone's wishes were coming true? Apparently not. There are some good things, I suppose. Gal Gadot looks fantastic as Wonder Woman, as ever. She's not the greatest actress around, but I suppose Judi Dench wouldn't have looked so good in the outfit. Hans Zimmer's score is always good. Pedro Pascal and Chris Pine do pretty well in their roles. That's about it, really. The CGI is pretty ropey in places, almost like it was about 20 years out of date. Most of the men are portrayed as just perving after Wonder Woman, which isn't that far-fetched, really. Not as far-fetched as her being alone for 60 odd years. There are some emotional scenes, and I may be a hard-hearted old cynic, but even this Bampot went all Kevin Smith at the scene where Wonder Woman has to let Steve die again to get her powers back. No, it's not because I was emotionally invested, it was because I looked at the time and I knew there was about 40 minutes more of this guff to go. And that's probably the biggest negative of this movie for me. It's just way too long. And the story's too flimsy to warrant that length. I haven't even mentioned Kirsten Wiig's role. She's a clumsy, awkward stereotype, a role that Wiig gets a lot. She wishes to be like Diana and inadvertently gets her powers, becomes bad, and turns into a cheetah lady for some reason. She fights Wonder Woman a couple of times. Her role has got nothing to do with the plot. Take her out completely, and you've shaved the runtime down to under 2 hours, and you've lost nothing plot-wise. Or you could have her in it as just a colleague of Wonder Woman, maybe a bit jealous of her, and then at the very end, she finds another magic rock in the shape of a cheetah, and she says, "Oh, what's this?" And then it ends, setting up Wonder Woman 3. There's loads of little plot nitpicks that I could mention, but to be honest, I save that for films that I really hate. This film is more just a disappointment. It's not even so bad that it's worth seeing to hate it. What else can I say? Well, you see Linda Carter from the 70s TV show in the end credits, and she's aged really well. She's even older than I am. I don't know why her character would have aged at all, mind you. Maybe only Wonder Woman stays about 30 years old. And anyway, that's it. It's just a light, fluffy, disappointing, overly long mess. If you've got a spare 2.5 hours and you don't have to pay anything to see it, then maybe you should watch it, but don't say I didn't warn you. As usual, like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, save the biscuit, the usual stuff. I'll see you later.